Welcome to ProBox TV. I'm Ricardo Celis here in the studio with the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi. We have via Zoom Chris Algeri. In September, ProBox TV brought you some of the very best in boxing, non-stop drama and true 50-50 fights, dear Paulie, and especially in these two cards that we had in September.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you're watching the cards and you're sweating as you're watching them. Some real dynamite action, and I love the reputation ProBox is getting. You know, I think we're developing that cult following, that for the fanfare, and people really look forward to us, you know, to watching us, and because they know the matchups are always going to be fun, entertaining. And like you said, 50-50, evenly matched fights. Listen, we have a contender series, which is not always 50-50. But then once you get to that, the prospect series, the future stars, and then the contenders series, I mean, dude, once you get that going, that part of the card going, it is dynamite after dynamite after dynamite. You know, that last show we had in September, 3 quote-unquote B-sides. The boss Gary doesn't like to call them A and B-sides, but 3 B-sides won that night. And it's not out of the ordinary for ProBox TV to have B-side winners. That's my positive about the Florida Commission. They don't really play politics. If there's a mistake in the scoring, which I don't always agree with their decisions sometimes, but I'll tell you what, it's genuine. They don't play politics like some other commissions. Go ahead, Champ.
Listen, I gotta push back because
go ahead.
There's a negative to this too.
What is it?
I can't sleep after the fight.
Yeah,
I'm up all night because I'm so excited because the
adrenaline.
last fight, that Raul Garcia Emiliano Moreno fight. I mean, listen, if you're watching this right now and you didn't see that fight, go watch that fight.
Yeah.
We're talking fight of the year on the world stage. I'm not talking about fight of the year for ProBox.
Yeah.
I'm talking about fight of the year for boxing in 2025. That we were so jacked up after that fight, we could have called fights all night long.
Yeah.
I mean, I was laying in bed staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. thinking about that fight.
Yeah.
Replaying
it in your head.
That's what's coming to what you come to expect when you turn into a ProBox TV fight. Yeah, so the fight's 50-50, absolutely. But not only are they picked stylistically so they're going to match up, so the fight's going to, you don't know who's going to win. They're picked so their styles will match up to be exciting. There's no runners, there's no holders, there's people who are going to throw punches, there are people who are going to try to go for the knockout, there's people who are going to look to win each and every time out. There's no opponents, there's no B-sides, there's no journeyman. Every fight is tough. And if you see a guy with a journeyman record, you better look past the numbers because I guarantee you that guy's coming to fight and he's going to be in an excellent, hellacious back-and-forth war because that's just what ProBox TV is all about.
And I'll tell you what, that's part of the allure as well. It's not because they fight. It's also because they have opponents in front of them who force them to fight. They don't show up wanting to be opponents. You got a prospect who forces you to fight. And if you're an opponent, you sort of fade out. You start surviving. But what we look for here at ProBox is to have fighters who show up to win, who have the reputation to show up to win. So therefore, if you show up to win, and your opponent shows up to win, and then your opponent pushes you a little bit, you're not going to take on the journeyman mentality and say, okay, let me just survive and get through it. For the most part, obviously not every fight is a perfect matchup, but for the most part, we look to give you fights where neither guy is going to back off the winning mentality. So if he's pushed a little bit, he's going to push back, and that's what happens there. That's why you don't have runners and holders and whatnot, because when a guy gets pushed, he realizes, yo, this win is important to me tonight. I got to push back. I can't go into survival mode. And that's how a lot of the fights start evolving, if you start to notice. And that's why they wind up being so exciting.
That's why in this program, we're going to analyze the best 8 fights for the month of September. In number 8, we have Juanmita Lopez versus Luis Morales in a flyweight division, super flyweight division. Paulie, that was a great fight, yeah?
I don't know if it was a great fight. I don't know if it was a great fight, but it was a bit of a wild one, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you, usually 4-rounders, you know, you kind of have the writing on the wall. There's a distinct A side and there's a distinct B side, and you know, sort of par for the course for a prospect to go through these kind of fights, especially a blue chip ace prospect like Juanmita Lopez, who comes from a DNA of championship boxing with his father having been an ex-world champion. But very awkward opponents. Sometimes in those 4-rounders, awkward opponents, and 6-rounders even, 4 and 6 rounders, awkward opponents can be difficult to deal with because you don't have a lot of time to figure them out. And awkwardness sometimes figures out how to steal rounds and make you look bad and so on and so forth. So I think it was one of those things where it got exciting because you didn't quite know how Morales was going to react. I don't think Morales even knew how he was going to react. He was just kind of freestyling, free-flowing on his own. While Juanmita was, you know, you could see he had a set style and a set base in boxing. So sometimes, you know, those kind of fights can turn a little bit on their head, and sometimes you see upsets in them just because there's not enough time for the the well-schooled fighter to figure out the awkwardness of the opponent. And in the 6 rounds, that's sort of what happened. Juan Mita, credit to him though, he did figure it out, scored a knockdown or two, and made his excellent boxing eventually come to the forefront.
He's undefeated now. He's 4-0, Juan Mita Lopez. Let's remember, Chris, that he was a former Olympian. He went to Paris to 2024.
Yeah, I actually called 2 of Juan Mita's fights, his pro debut actually, and he's very good. And he's definitely his father's son. He's got the look, he's got the power, he's got the pedigree, he's got the DNA, like you said, champ, and he showed that night because of the poise that he displayed against an opponent who made it very, very difficult to look good. And Juan Mita was still able to look good. He still showed his skill set. Was cut, was bleeding, didn't let it bother him, stuck to the game plan. Had a very tricky guy in front of him who didn't give a very big target or a steady target, but was still able to score 2 knockdowns, was still able to win handily, was still able to deal with adversity. And I think it was very smart of Luis Morales to fight the way that he fought, because he couldn't go technique for technique with an Olympian like a Lopez. So he made it rough. He made it awkward. He made it tough. He threw big punches. He was looking for the knockout. And that's why he actually made it an entertaining fight. Because if you think if he went out there and Juanma steamrolled him like he has his other opponents, we wouldn't even be talking about it. But the fact that Morales was able to make some adjustments and make the fight a little difficult for Juanma is why we're talking about it. And was it a great fight? No, it wasn't. But that's why it's number 8 on our list of 8 fights for September. But nonetheless, it was still entertaining to watch.
His dad, Juanma Lopez, he was with us during the broadcast in Spanish. He was super nervous because it was the first time that he saw his son fighting live. Right?
Well, yeah, not just that. It's, again, the awkwardness. He got cut from a clash of heads.
In the second round,
awkward
right.
Guys, they can make you look bad. If you're high quality, they typically won't beat you, but they make you look bad, and then the media and fans, they don't quite understand why you look so bad, so it creates more criticism than anything else. But I think it showed a lot of poise and maturity on the part of Juan Mita to get through such an awkward opponent, a guy who's very difficult to look good against, and a guy who's throwing big shots off that awkwardness, which sometimes you worry about because he can get you caught. So yeah, Juanma, the father, he had a right to be a little bit nervous, but his son showed the pedigree that he is.
And especially Chris Sender Sayas, he was also there in Osceola Heritage Park. And he was on Juan Mita's Lopez corner.
Yeah, I mean, Puerto Ricans supporting Puerto Ricans. Juan Mita Lopez is a legacy in this sport. His father, Juanma Lopez, is one of the best Puerto Rican fighters of recent generation. I remember when he was on his tear a bunch of years ago, and he was one of my favorite fighters because the way that he fought and the way that he dispatched guys. And we're down in South Florida. We were in Kissimmee, Orlando. Very strong Puerto Rican population there. People came out. And not just the fans, also the other champions, the other Puerto Rican champions that are around. Edgar Berlanga was there, Xander Zayas was there, Juanma Lopez was there. Obviously, his son was fighting. All in all, it was a good, entertaining night with some past and living legends, to enjoy the fights just like us.
Let's go to the highlights to see this fight between Juan Mita Lopez versus Luis Morales on the super flyweight division, 6 rounds. This happened September 27 in the Osceola Heritage Park. That was the headbutt in the second round. Huh?
Yeah, again, he had an awkward guy like Morales jumping in with big shots, sometimes flying in with his head. He's very short, so he ends up getting underneath you and can sort of billy goat a lot of times. And you saw even that exchange. This one ends up actually with Juan Mita scoring a knockdown, but you saw the way Morales started it with banging heads first and then trying to push back Juan Mita and throw some punches. But Juan Mita held his ground nicely and then came back with a hook that dropped Morales. You can see Juan Mita's power is legit, man, because he's not really putting a lot on these shots, and he's scoring legit knockdowns. He's got good torque on his shots and naturally heavy hands. And I think his father had pretty good heavy hands too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first thing I noticed when I called his pro debut. I was like, yeah, no, he can punch just like his dad. Very, very strong. Good punching power. And champ, to your point, about that headbutt when you got a guy who's wild And especially when you're early on in your career, like a guy like Juanito who wants to get a knockout, he was punching a little wide at first as well, which allowed openings for that headbutt to actually land. Because after that first headbutt, it got much cleaner, much quicker, because Juanito went more to his technique and stopped trying to load up on every shot as well. He was able to keep his gloves in between him and his opponent so that head wasn't doing any more damage.
We have already via Zoom Juanmita Lopez de Jesus. Juanma, first of all, how's the cut? How's your face after the headbutt that you received?
I'm good. It's something new. It's my first cut, but we managed good, and now we are recovering from that cut.
Juanmita, did you know he was going to be that awkward? Did you expect such an awkward opponent? What did you know about Morales before the fight?
Yeah, we know that he was a really hard fighter because in Puerto Rico he was a national champ, and his style was always the same. Really like something crazy. You didn't know what he's going to do in the ring, but we was a little bit surprised because in the early fights he always comes to bring a war, and he was a little bit surviving from the 2 rounds to the 6th round.
So you knew him from the amateurs?
Yeah, no, I never fought with him, but my friends here in Puerto Rico knows him a lot.
Juanmita, how do you rate your performance? He had a very awkward style, like you said. He was surviving. It seemed like he felt your power pretty early and decided that he was just going to look to load up. But in terms of your own performance, dealing with a cut, dealing with a guy who fought awkwardly, you looked very poised. How do you rate your performance?
Maybe eight out of 10 because we have something to some things to change. It's like maybe I had to be a little bit calm. Because maybe in the first rounds I a little bit desperate, but we managed good the style of Luis, and we do a good work. So maybe 8 out of 10.
Juanmita,
Nice.
how you felt having your dad over there in the venue in Kissimmee, Florida? We talked to him before your fight, and he was super nervous.
Yeah, it was great. Have a world champion. And know that that's your dad. And the figure in Puerto Rico that he is great for me. It's like it's motivated me a lot to be a better fighter. When I in the ring.
Juanmita, I felt like when I watched the fight, Morales, in the beginning, maybe was trying to win. But at a certain point, I think I start to realize he knows he cannot win. So he's just trying to make you look bad, which I kind of didn't like. Like it was at this point, he was no longer trying to win. And some guys, they're not trying to win, but they're trying to survive. He was not trying to win, but he was not trying to survive. It was almost like he was just trying to make you look bad. So I felt like you did a very good job of staying poised and mature and picking the punches to knock him down and get your respect. But did you notice some of the same things from him?
Yeah. In the 4th round, my trainer was telling me like he only tries to do that what you're saying, to make me look bad. So he was telling me to not desperate, because when if I try to knock him out, he maybe caught me with a punch. So
Or a
he was
headbutt.
telling me like, yeah, he was telling me like, be calm and do not desperate because if he can, maybe clip you with a punch or maybe another cut, like in the 6th round, again he was hitting me with a headbutt, but
Yeah. He was flying like a ram, like a billy goat. He was jumping
yeah,
in.
he was jumping, like he was making like crazy things in the ring, but
Fue como un
that's why.
canguro, like.
Yeah.
Juanmita, how many amateur fights did you have?
Like 125.
Yeah, I can tell. You're very
Because-
poised, very mature.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, he tried to make you look bad, but as the fight wore on, I think he did the opposite. I think you looked as the fight went on, I thought you looked better and better. You look crisper, cleaner, more relaxed. How long are we going to be out with that cut? What are the doctors saying? How long until we see you again?
They told me I have to wait 8 weeks, before be sparring again. So maybe I have to wait to January to be in the ring again. But it's good because I have 4 fights this year, so I can recover from that fights and maybe become stronger, in January.
That's a good year. 4 fights in a year is solid.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because that gives me the experience. You know, I in this fight I have a knockdown in the second fight. I come back and win the fight. Now I had a cut and I know how to manage. So I think it's a year of experience.
Juanmita, thank you very much for being here with us in ProBox TV. I can't wait to see you back next year, okay?
Thank you for having me here.
Now we have via Zoom Luis Morales, who just lost his second fight. Luis, hola, ¿cómo estás? Bienvenido a ProBox. ¿Cómo estás el día de hoy?
Muy bien, muy gracias a Dios, ¿verdad? Muy buenos días a ustedes.
Talk about the fight you had against Juanma Lopez.
Fue una gran pelea. Juan Metal López es un gran peleador. Un nene que viene de las Olimpiadas y ¿qué puedo describir de él? Que es un gran peleador, un gran talentoso para Puerto Rico.
What was his mindset going into the fight? What game plan did he go in with?
Sacarlo de su mente, de su juego, movimiento, mucho fe. Y ese era el plan de pelea, lo que teníamos que hacer, mantener, entrar y salir, y nunca quedarnos parados.
I noticed he was looking for a lot of big shots. Was the plan to knock him out?
Sí, era el plan.
Luis, you have a very unique style. You know, the champ had mentioned you throw big power shots. Is that how you always fight, or is that the style that you utilize in order to defeat Guanamita?
Ese era el plan, ¿me entiendes? De pelear, de entrar y salir, nunca quedarme parado a él de frente porque yo sabía que venía con el gancho.
Luis, ¿eres puertorriqueño tú? ¿En Texas?
Puerto Rico 100%.
Sí,
Por
yo
eso.
lo veo,
Boricua.
lo escucho.
Boricua 100%.
Yeah, I could tell from his accent. He was speaking with I'm from New York, you know, so
Right.
the Puerto Rican accent in Spanish, I can recognize it. I'm like, he speaks like he's Puerto Rican, but he lives in Texas, so I had to ask him.
Puerto Rican 100%. Luis, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Luis, for being here with us in ProBox TV.
Gracias a ProBox. Estoy muy agradecido con ustedes de todo corazón.
In number 7, we have a fight in the lightweight division. Hugo Amador Mendes. He was born in Texas, but his parents are from Guatemala, versus Puerto Rican Andrés El Flaco Caravayo. That was a good fight, Paulie.
Yeah, with another good fight. You know what? A proud Texan from Guatemala is Hugo Amador Mendes, and speaks very well, has an exciting style. You know, you don't always expect the prospect fights to wind up on a list like this. You know, a lot of our contender fights, we sell them as 50-50, and they typically are. But sometimes the prospect fights, we match the prospects here a little tougher than average prospects get matched, don't get me wrong, but it's not always 50-50 fights. Well, this fight was, you know, we knew even on paper. You know, Caravayo comes in. Mendes obviously undefeated with an amateur career and whatnot, fought in the Pan Am Games representing Guatemala and all that. And also, if you come up in the amateur system in Texas, there's a lot of competitive boxing in Texas.
True.
So Mendes, having a vast amateur experience and being from Texas, you knew he can fight already. We'd seen him before, but you can already just look at it on paper, he can fight. Cardoso, 3-1 with 3 KOs. And the one loss, champ, correct me, it was to an undefeated guy, right? The one loss?
Yeah, he lost to another prospect.
So it wasn't like this guy was a blown up 3-1 record with 3 KOs. He's 3-1, 3 KOs, and legitimate punching power. And in the first round, he got Mendes' attention with a big right hand, long, lanky frame. Mendes, like a true prospect that he is, got through it, broke him down, and took over the fight like that. I mean, he got hit with that right hand. A mentally less strong fighter would have felt that shot, especially from a guy with 3 knockout wins and three victories, and may have sort of changed his tune a little bit. Mendes actually did the opposite. He started taking the fight to Caravayo even more, taking away the space, and before you knew it, within a few rounds, it was Caravayo's tune who had changed a little bit. And now he realized, my hands are full tonight. I don't know how to get out of this fight. You know, I don't know how to deal with this guy. Credit to Caravayo for, continuing to try, but Mendes' quality started to show.
Especially the quality
Champ,
of Mendes.
I actually...
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, Champ, I actually was a little worried about Amador early on in that fight because he got hit with that big shot. And he backed him up to the ropes. He actually told us afterwards that he rolled his ankle. And then he got hit with another right hand in that salvo while he was on the ropes. And then he came back right away, and I'm like, man, I think he's being a little too tough for his own good. He might get caught again. But no, I was wrong. And his attitude, his charisma sold it. And he domesticated Caravayo the rest of the way, more on attitude than anything. He wasn't landing the biggest punches. He wasn't really super active with the jab, but it was a lot of just physical pressure and just bodying Caravayo. Exactly, being the boss in the ring that really took the fight and the will out of Caravayo. And I was impressed by that. Would I have rather him go out there, use his jab a little bit, set his punches up, throw some touch shots to land some big shots and score the KO? Absolutely. But It's so early in his career. I like to see that he's got that dog in him because he showed it. He's got that boss mentality. He gets hit with a big shot. He's got that I'm invincible mentality that you need when you're that age. And he walked right through everything that Caravayo was bringing. And also he made adjustments. He didn't get hit with that punch anymore after that. Instead of breaking position and moving backwards and getting hit by the longer guy, he stayed in the pocket, didn't break position, and actually backed Caravayo up. That's what you want to do with the puncher. So I think Amador showed a lot that night. Are there things to work on? Absolutely. We spoke about that with him ringside. He understood that. Now we just got to see if he can actually take those things, go back to the drawing board, and bring some new tools to the next fight.
Yeah, well-spoken, intelligent kid, and he acknowledged the fact that there are some things he wants to work on. And you can tell with his mature mindset that he has, I'm rather sure that in the gym he's working on this, maybe even as we speak right now. You know?
Oh, definitely.
And he's it's a phrase Teddy Atlas likes to say, the attitude of a fighter, and that's what I really enjoyed about Mendes. He showed the attitude of a fighter that night.
So, Paulie, we got here the highlights from Hugo Amador Mendes against Andres El Flaco Caravayo.
Yeah, and you can see there, Mendes rolled his right ankle, as you mentioned to us, and then he gets hit with the right hand right after, and he pushes him back. But right after that, Mendes' mentality went into another gear. He went up a gear instead of going down a gear. Sometimes you get hit with a big shot and it lowers your gears. Instead, Mendes, you can see, takes control of the ring, takes control of the positioning, as the champ said, no longer gave space to Caravayo, and started to really mentally as well as physically break Caravayo. And Caravayo's mindset started to change from that point. It almost got to the point where he stopped trying to win and started realizing, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to get through this whole fight. And so it became more of a survival tactic. And Mendes, from that point on, was in control of the fight. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was so much the experience, as much as just his attitude. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's been in the gyms. He's been working. You can tell he's been working with more experienced guys, probably working with a lot of pros over the years. He just wasn't having it. He's like, this guy can't beat me. I got more attitude. I got more charisma. I got more everything than this guy. I got more heart. I got more will. And he showed that. He didn't go out there and show his skill after he got hit. He showed his will. And, that's good to see, like you said, Champ, the attitude of a fighter come out of him in the way that it did. And listen, he had a guy in front of him that was dangerous. He had a guy in front of him that got his attention early on, very early on. And he made adjustments on the fly and showed that he was the boss in the ring. And I think that's important for a young fighter to have that mentality, have that aura about them. Because when things do get tough, a guy like Amador is going to actually step up.
Talking about the boss, let's welcome our CEO, Gary Jonas. Gary, talk about this fight, Hugo Amador Mendes versus El Flaco Caravayo.
Well, look, there's nothing to add to what Chris and Paulie do in terms of breaking down a fight and how it went down and what's going on in the ring. They're bang on. I think what's interesting is what was going on outside the ring. Again, this is a kid who we brought on. We knew he had a lot of talent. We knew he was a top prospect. But as usual with certain managers and sometimes fathers and coaches, they're apprehensive to take a fight. They want to fight. They don't want to take any risks. That's one of the hardest things that I have to do is get them to take that entertaining fight. And quite frankly, how I do it sometimes, guys, is I just say, okay, you can't be on TV. And it was like, oh, no, you're off TV. Listen, there's warriors and then there's people playing it safe. And I'll give you a few, but after a while, you're going to have to step up. You're not going to be on ProBox TV, and you're certainly not going to see airtime. So finally, this go around, Robert Diaz was very nervous ringside. The first round, when there was that stumble and he thought he might have been hurt, he just was like, his face went white. You have this pressure outside the ring of all the other dynamics that are going on. And I'm like, oh no, if this kid doesn't come through, I'm in deep, deep shit. And so sure enough, it's just fun to watch. Again, I just want to give the kid so much credit. And when he came over when I went up on the ropes, it was a hell of a fight. I went up to him and I said, you're my new favorite fighter. And he kind of looked at me. And when he came out afterwards in front of everybody, Najee, the whole team, a bunch of grown-ups, kid walks up and he just says, I don't want no fucking tomato cans. You give me the best you can give me anytime, any place. And right then and there, I looked at one of the producers and I said, he's got to be interviewed by Chris and Paulie at the end of the night. So I just wanted to share with the fans that what it takes for certain prospects, and that kid has all the mental makeup to be a great fighter just because of examples like that and willing to take on anybody.
Now we have Hugo Amador Mendes all the way from Texas. Hugo, welcome to ProBox TV. Talk to us about that fight against Andres Caravayo.
It was definitely more of a challenging fight. I felt like it was a test, and I felt like I definitely passed that test. There was a little bit of some issues in the first round, I will say that, but after that, I felt like I dominated.
What's the lesson you take out of the fight? You know, we try to obviously improve, get better every fight.
Of course,
what's the lesson you take out of this fight?
I think I need to come in there a little bit less angsty to not be able to get hit with a shot that could knock me off balance for sure, to sprain my ankle. Also, throw a little bit more lighter shot so I could set up for a heavy shot like I wanted. I feel like that would be some points I need to improve on if I'm going forward.
Yeah, Amador, I mean, we spoke immediately after the fight that night, after your victory, and it was a dominant performance. We spoke about some of the things that you'd like to see to do improve in the future. But listen, I'll tell you this, man, you need fights like this early on. You need to get touched with a shot and understand that. What I saw was you got hit with a good shot. Again, you said you got knocked you off balance, you rolled your ankle a bit. That's adversity. And for me, you passed that with flying colors. You took it to him after that. You took the will out of him by your personality, by your mannerisms. You can win fights on just body language alone. And if it wasn't for the skill difference as well, it would have been that was the case. So for me, I liked what I saw. But absolutely, other things that you're gonna be able to build upon, that you can go back to the drawing board with. Is really important. But these are the kind of fights that early on in your career are necessary, but not too many of them, right?
Yeah,
you don't need to get too many of these kinds of fights. Because honestly, just like you said, if you went out there and you got on your jab and you threw some not pity pat punches, but less powerful punches, I think you dominate from beginning to end and probably even stop a guy like that.
Yeah.
So have you been back to the gym yet? How's the ankle feeling? And have you been able to start working on this stuff yet?
Sure. It got very swollen, so I have been taking a little bit of a break just because I want this to rest on time, so I don't any further injury. But I'm planning on getting in the gym here soon in the next coming week. Yeah, I always want to stay active in the gym and stay ready for any possible fights coming up.
Hugo, he started out the fight seemingly hungry. It looked like really a head-to-head battle where both of you showed up to win. A lot of times, a lot of prospects, they sort of go through the kind of opponents that really don't show up to win. They sort of show up to survive. But he showed up to win, and his body language and the way he was throwing his punches violently kind of told us he was there to win. At what point did you start to realize that changed? Because they did come a point in the fight where he wasn't trying to win anymore. You could see he got into survival
mode. I would say after I really took his best shot, I would say, I felt like he really felt like he hurt me with that. And notably, I mean, it looked like that. So after I took that and just continued on the same game plan and not like running away or just skirting away or getting very angsty with my punches, after I just did that and stick to my game plan, I would say around like towards the end of that second round, he started to really think, I don't know if I have this fight anymore. I don't think these shots are going to, if I throw this shot, I think I'm going to get countered very easily and stuff like that. I seem to start giving up around that point, I would say.
Because I'll tell you, now he's 3-2 with 3 knockouts. That's a bad record and a dangerous guy. That's a guy that could, if the wrong manager makes that matchup with his prospect who may not be ready, there could be an upset.
No, he definitely has a heavy hand. He's a young man as well. I mean, I just saw that his career has mostly been in this 1 year. So, I mean, he definitely wants to make a career out of it. He hasn't been moved correctly, I feel, because of the prospects he's been getting. But he's a decent little fighter. And with right management, he could go further than what he is right now.
And Hugo, I know that you're super proud to represent Guatemala, just like Lester Martinez, right?
Yes, very proud. I spent a good amount of time in Guatemala. I've been to their Olympic team and their Olympic quarters, and I've slept in the dormitories with them. They're all very loving, caring people, and I appreciate the support from that country.
Hugo, thank you very much, and congratulations one more time for that great win here in ProBox TV.
Thank you, everybody.
Now we just saw the number 7. And before we start talking about the other fights, we need to talk about ProBox TV, from our fighters, our stable, from the ProBox TV to the world stage. And to talk about stable, precisely, we have here our CEO, Gary Jonas. Gary, in the next couple of months, we're going to have really good fights. We're going to have Lamont Roach fighting Isaac Pitbull Cruz. We're going to have Erickson Lubin fighting Virgil Ortiz. Talk about a stable from ProBox.
Yeah, I say it a lot, but it's been a pretty good run. I think it goes back to last year when Angelo Leo upset Bernardo Lopez, and then we went on to Roach having his controversial draw, which most of us think he won. And then Cardenas had a great performance against Inoue, and then right back with Lester, another draw, right? But yeah, a really great performance. So the stable just keeps performing really well off platform, and now Lubin's coming up November 8th against Ortiz. We'll see how that goes. I'm optimistic. And then back to Roach and Pitbull Cruz. So it hasn't stopped. It's getting bigger and better. Najee almost ended up, fighting Bitterbiev in November. So we're pretty pleased with how it's all evolving.
And also, Paulie, we just got Lester Martinez against the draw against Kristen and Billy.
Yeah, that goes to show you that it's not just for the moment. It's also there's a lot of eyes to the future as well. Gary mentioned Najee Lopez being mentioned and being talked about in the Bitterbiev sweepstakes. Najee just had a great performance last week on our air, and he's probably looking at something bigger moving into 2026. He's going to be joining some of these bigger name fighters on these other bigger networks. The likes of Lamont Roach and the likes of Erickson Lubin fighting on bigger networks for bigger money. So I think as our fighters start to develop more and more, you're going to see them, going off platform to fight these bigger name fighters, championship level. And I think that it kind of establishes us as the breeding ground, really, to separate the contenders from the pretenders. And our fighters at ProBox TV are certainly not pretenders, certainly contenders, because they're battle tested and they're making waves and they're making their names. And Lester Martinez is one of those guys. Before having that war with Mbili, he was sort of razoring and sharpening his teeth on ProBox TV, and he was getting ready for the step up and the level up to Mbili. And when he got to Mbili, he certainly wasn't overmatched. It was a hellacious pace, but Lester not only wasn't overmatched, Lester gave as good as he took. And for me personally, if that fight was going 12 instead of 10, I think Lester was going to start to pull away and get that decision. So a lot to look forward to for the stable, not just with what we've done already and what we have coming up in the near future, but also in the not so distant future as well. In 2026, we got some young studs that are going from our prospect phases into that contender phase.
You just talked about the near future. November 7th, Gary, we're going to have a great card over there in Lakeland, Florida, with Nicholas Flash, who's going to be fighting against Delante Tiger Johnson, this former Olympian, and also Dominic Valle versus Miguel Torres. Talk about those fights.
Yeah, I think the fans should know that we're taking a little rest in October, and then we end the year with 3 fights in November and 1 in early December. So we're going to have 4 fights in about 5 weeks. Unofficially, I think we're taking a break because Paulie's got a big fight. So
I'll take the blame for that one, guys.
Yeah, we're going to take a minute and pause everything out of paying homage to Paulie's comeback there. But no, it's the calendar is setting up nicely, and I think that Flaz and Delante Johnson November 7th is a hell of a good fight. Appreciate Top Rank's cooperation in making that fight. So that's going to be really interesting, and I'm sure Chris has a lot to say about that. But before I pass it to you, Chris, just Urdenabat's also fighting Benitez. In the co-main, Katsuma's fighting Astrolobio. In the fight before that, and then Dominic Valle versus Torres Nunez. So the Emilio Garcia's coming back, and the Boca Negra boys from Texas are coming back. So November 7th is going to be a stacked card. But, I mean, Chris, I'm sure you're feeling pretty good about Flaz and Delante Johnson.
Yeah, we talked about that little hiatus we've been taking in October. My skin is itchy. I need ProBox TV fights to get my blood boiling each and every month. But November is going to be good. And going to just piggybacking off what the champ Paulie Malignaggi said about the different levels of the ProBox TV fighters that we've seen. That card's a perfect display of that. You've got a guy like Nicholas Flaz, who I believe is right at the championship level. I think he's right underneath these guys. I could see him being a world champion in the next couple of years. And he's the kind of guy that took a couple early losses in his career, has been in tough from the very get-go, and has learned on the job. And he's the kind of guy that could very easily fall through the cracks. But Gary Jonas and the matchmakers over at ProBox TV saw the talent level that he's had, and he's cut his teeth on ProBox TV, which means he's gotten better each and every time out. This guy, when the time comes, ProBox TV fighters are ready, and that's been shown historically with all the fighters that have stepped up to bigger and bigger and better platforms or bigger opportunities on the world stage. They've either won or been robbed with draws, as far as I'm concerned, because our guys have had their teeth cut on our air and have been in tough throughout. Nicholas Flaz is one of those guys. Yeah, you got to look at his record, but you got to look past the numbers when it comes to ProBox TV fights. Ertenbach is another guy, man, such a high-level Olympian who has impressed time and time again on our air, and he's the kind of guy that, whether he's in with a journeyman with 50 fights or he's in there with a world-class guy, he's going to perform. He's always entertaining, fun to watch. Akatsugi is becoming one of my favorite guys on the ProBox TV roster. Throws nonstop punches. Now he's knocking guys out. He's learning on the job, and that's a big statement for someone like him who's fighting tougher and tougher opposition and looks better each and every time out. And then you got a guy like Dominic Valle, who is literally homegrown from ProBox TV. He trains at the ProBox TV event center, which is also the gym now the gym, and has come up on our air his entire career. His entire career has been built on ProBox TV, so he's been in tough. Even though he's one of your own, Gary, I know you put your guys into the fire time and time again. Where we would see these fights, I look at the outside, I see who they're fighting, I'm like, Gary, really? Is that too soon? We actually had this conversation on the last fight that, you're putting these guys in so tough, but hey, man, it's sink or swim on ProBox TV.
Look, I want to take a minute and talk about this because I am getting very fatigued about this A side, B side thing. It's funny. I don't think the fans recognize it as much as the boxing insiders do. Managers, promoters, fighters, fathers. It's amazing. They're all willing to take these 50-50 fights. But now my problem is, before I couldn't get them to do it. Now it's trending. I'm getting them to be able to take the fight. But what's the number one comment? Okay, I'll take that fight, but I got to be the A side. I'm like,
there is no A side.
Okay.
Did you see last week?
Yeah, fine.
I'm like, what does that mean to you? Well, I got to be in this corner, not that corner. I go, I could switch him. Like, what? No, I got to be on the left side of the poster, not the right side of the poster. I go, what the fuck is that? And they go, no, you see it in BoxRec. Everyone on the left side of BoxRec is the A side and the B side. I'm like, I don't think the fans see it that way, but this is the number one topic. And look, we got to do away with the A side, B side, because how can you make a 50-50 fight? Just the fact that A side and B side is such a big thing in boxing tells you there was a problem with boxing not making 50-50 fights.
Well, Garrett,
bingo.
I'll tell you what, though. I enjoy paying attention to it just to see how evenly matched our fights are. Last weekend, for example, 3 guys on the, I'll call it quote unquote because I know you don't like the A side, B side thing, but on the quote unquote B side won last week.
Right.
3 guys.
On the left side of the box rack.
Yeah.
They get that. When you lose and you're on the left side, it turns red.
Yeah.
So you can see, when you look at our card, you got 3 red glaring losses.
So it speaks to the level of matchmaking we have here, the level of competitiveness we have here, and the level of how hungry and determined both sides are in every matchup we have. Because we put guys in with one another who are not at the opponent's stage. They are both at the stage in their careers where they know that a win gets them so far, so they fight that much hungrier. And I want to just make one more point about this November 7th card before we move on, guys. I've always compared ProBox TV as the replacement for Friday Night Fights, because Friday Night Fights is nostalgic to me, and it's something that I really, really loved, and it's something that I really, really miss, and I think something that all old school fans like me, I'm 44, so I guess I'm an old school fan now, really, really enjoyed as part of the of our sort of branding into our own boxing career, and as fans.
And Champ also gave us our leg up.
Yeah,
gave guys like you and I our leg up.
So ProBox TV, I love the fact that it sort of has taken over that space that had disappeared after Friday Night Fights had gone. But I'll tell you what else had disappeared lately, around that same time, HBO and Showtime. And when it comes to November 7th, Flaz and Tiger Johnson is not a Friday Night Fights fight. Flaz and Tiger Johnson is an elevated fight. That's HBO Boxing After Dark, dude. That fight would have been on HBO Boxing After Dark back in the day, okay? Tiger Johnson and Nicholas Flaz is a little bit higher level than Friday Night Fights. So we are starting to tiptoe into the next level, which is HBO Boxing After Dark. That's what I moved into. I moved from Friday Night Fights. Well, I fought the Cotto fight, but then I came back to HBO Boxing After Dark when I fought Edna Cherry, and I fought a few fights there. I fought on Championship Boxing, I fought on Boxing After Dark as well. So you're right there now. You're moving into that elevated status. Flaz and Tiger Johnson, man, that's a Boxing After Dark
That's
fight.
going to be a great fight.
And people... And of course, this card is tremendous. You know, you talk about Erdenbot and Akatsugi. We're like, to quote, you know, I like my movie quotes, Chris. And maybe this one's less known than some of the other mafia movies. The movie Gotti with Armando Sante, when they're at the sit down and they're talking about they got to work with all the other families, and Armando Sante goes, "We're like United Nations now. We work with everybody." So that's us. We're like United Nations now. We work with everybody. Akatsugi and Erdenbot, this Asian connection. Love the way they're progressing. We have Hispanic fighters, African American fighters, white fighters. We got the whole thing here, man. And they all can fight, and it's always fun matchmaking. I'll say one thing about Erdenbot. I think sometimes Erdenbot is so talented that he looks bored. And I think there's a risk there. If we don't start to match him tougher, if he doesn't move into a tough fight soon, you may lose him. Because there's things that I hear with Erdenbot. He's a very good fighter, but there's boredom in there, and he gets distracted if he doesn't have something to focus on. Erdenbot is a damn good fighter. Akatsugi's a damn good fighter. But somebody like Erdenbot, who has this extreme wealth of experience, I'd love to see him in a much bigger fight. So I'm looking forward to seeing him on November 7th. And I hope he's one of those guys who in 2026 moves into a really big, almost monstrous type fight, because he's of that level.
And now that you're talking the United Nations, Gary, we have to talk about Robson Conceição, this gold medalist, a Brazilian gold medalist.
Yeah, he had a really good performance in Kissimmee May 10th on the Lubin undercard. And we almost had him in a fight for the championship against Lara on the MVP show November 14th, but there was some conflicts with schedules. You know, that fight was a wild brawl in the ring with Popo Fritas and
Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah. They were the co-main to that. So he just fought. He got a good win against Yamaguchi over in Brazil, and now he's scheduled to come back on December 12th. And he's going to be in a very good fight. So we expect a lot of big things from Heber Sousa Concepcião in 2026.
Yeah, that's our December 12th card?
The December 12th card, just so you know, is Sousa in something very competitive. I think Naji, he may end up being back on that show. Darrell Valsant, I'm looking forward to him coming back on that show. Marcus Valle and Joshawn James.
The ProBox
TV. That's a good fight.
That's a fun one. And Mindoro is in a tough fight. Mindoro's finally going to get him in a...
That's about time, Gary.
Yeah,
Mindoro's another one.
He's been mowing him down. He's been mowing him down.
That's the 160-pound night. Those are all, Naji 175, but Sousa's 160. Darrell was 160, 154. Marcus and Joshawn James 160. Mindoro 160. The whole card.
Night of the middleweights. Middleweights.
Big boys.
That's good.
Wow.
Big boys. Guys who and they can punch too. A lot of good punchers in there. A lot of entertaining fights. A lot of good matchups. That's exciting.
I mean, the one on Thanksgiving that I'm going to ruin your Thanksgiving weekend, but I'll try to make it up to you, is Magdaleno versus Yakubov is the main event in Fresno on that night. And Baidio is fighting this kid, Elwin Soto, who is an ex-world champion, I believe. And he's in a really competitive fight, dangerous fight, and he's number one in the WBC. We're looking at Paldo coming back, possibly against Teis.
Wow. Paldo's another one. I mean, we have a few guys that are right
really
there.
Good fights, yeah.
And against Teis, wow.
Teis is a nightmare, man. He's in your face. He's beating you up. Jordan White performance was very impressive.
Oh, look, November 21st, I think we're going to be in Fort Lauderdale. At the
guys, do you see what we're talking about with ProBox TV? You see these fights we're making, man?
No, but listen to the card on the one we're going to do in first in South Florida on November 21st. Jukumbaya versus Brian Flores, who arguably beat Delgado on ESPN.
Yep, I called that fight.
Yeah, that
He
and
can
so
fight.
Jukumbaya versus Flores is going to be a hell of a fight. Verone,
That's a pick 'em.
yeah, and Verone is fighting Roman Villa. So
Nice.
Villa's moving up to 54. So Verone versus Villa. Ruben Aguiar is going to go against Louis Lopez. I mean, it's going to be another. Like all these cards are elevated.
Stacked.
Stacked.
It's great.
50-50 fights.
It's-
And again, back to this no A side, B side thing, man. It's a curse. I think that it's important to understand something, and I want to talk about Emiliano Moreno when we talk about this. Look, all our guys are taking dangerous fights, and they should be seen as gladiators, right? These guys are all sort of adopting the philosophy. Yeah, I don't care about taking a loss. Let me fight the best guys out there that I can fight. Match me tough. And we knew that Moreno, to his credit, was taking on a very dangerous Raul Garcia. Now that fight came off. That was just an amazing fight. And Moreno lost, but I want to talk about it because I think that kid deserves a lot of credit. And obviously we see some holes in his defense. Right? He's still a very talented fighter offensively, but there is a little bit of a weakness there that we're seeing. And I still think he's going to be a world champion one day. I think at 20 years old, to take that kind of fight, he's just going to sharpen his blade. He's going to get back in the gym and he's going to work on something. And you know what? When these guys would fight bums, they wouldn't know that they had some defensive weaknesses because it wouldn't show. Mm-hmm. And so they'd go on and on and on, training year after year, fighting bums, not honing their defense. And then one day they get in that kind of fight and they find out the hard way and it's too late. So I hope that the fans see it that way and understand that that kid is a tremendous talent and he's going to be that much better in his prime, when he's 24, 25, because he took fights like that and it kind of exposed what he needed to work on.
Maybe
Gary, every fight that kid has had in our air, I kept looking at it like, these guys are really confident in their charge. Like every one of those fights was tough. Even the ones you got to look past the numbers, as we always do. I'm looking at these fights, I'm like, this kid's 19 years old. He's only got a handful of fights, and he's fighting another really tough kid coming up. And then step up, each and every time. Even the Eric Bonet fight, I'm like, this guy has a ton of experience. I mean, I fought him 12 years ago, like 10 years ago. Right. The guy's been around for a while, and to be 20 years old and be put in those kinds of fights, and up until actually, I think he performed even in that last fight. That was a great fight. It was just too much class for Raul Garcia, and he also showed up in a way that we have never seen. But I agree with you. I think that at 20 years old, taking a loss like that, a respectable loss to a very tough fighter who really showed up, I don't think it's going to hurt him that bad. As long as mentally he can come back from the loss, I think he's going to be a real problem down the line.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball in there, though, because it's also something, and Moreno does have talent. Moreno has the attitude of a fighter, which I love, but it's also something of the pro box matchmaking. Had he learned from the Cesar Francis fight, I don't think he gets beat the other night. He obviously didn't learn anything in the Cesar Francis fight. The way he waited and allowed Cesar to outbox him early on, and then it was sort of, Cesar is a little bit...
Well, champ, I think he learned that I can get him later.
No, because Cesar is a faded guy. Garcia's not. Yeah. So you have to expect that you can't get him later. Cesar's a faded guy. He has a little bit of a front.
Cesar's also a guy who's been stopped.
Cesar can fight, but he's got a little bit of a front and a reputation. So you always know that maybe late you might get him. Garcia is still young, and he's always hungry, and he'd been in tough fights all the way through in the Vladimir Hernandez fight, all the way through in the other fight that he lost. So
also a new weight class.
Yeah, so exactly. So you have to take those lessons, and otherwise you take that fall. And maybe it's a tough lesson, but certainly now he's had this lesson twice. One, he got away with it, and one, he didn't. And I think that it's something to work on. It's something that he still has a lot of upside to him, and especially being 20 years old is even more upside. But there's certainly, like Gary said, there's certainly some things that need to be worked on and corrected.
Our fight number 6 on the top fights of September is on the 175 pounds in the lightweight division when Naji Lopez, Chino Lopez, fought against Calvin Henderson. This was on 175 pounds, 10 rounds. Naji Lopez, he kept his undefeated.
Yeah, kept the undefeated record. A poised performance by Naji. I think he was very, very mature in there. Worked on some of the things that we had been wanting to see him work on, which was to pick his shots and not get impatient, looking for the knockout, let the knockout set itself up, let the knockout come. We know Najee has a very explosive punching power and style, and he can be exciting, especially with the athleticism with which he uses all those gifts. But sometimes he was in the past has shown a little bit of impatience, and through that impatience, it made him walk into some shots he didn't need to take, and sometimes even wound up on the canvas because of it. So you always wonder, despite all this talent, does Najee have the mindset? He has the right temperament, he has a killer instinct, but does he have the mindset to sort of taper it and control it for the proper times when to explode and the proper times when to sit back and set things up? And I think that was a case in point here that he showed in this fight with Henderson was the maturity and the poise and letting the knockout come to him instead of taking too many chances. Granted, Henderson a little bit long in the tooth, 35 years old, but it was the right opponent to work on such things for Najee Lopez, and he showed that he has that ability to control that mindset for the right moments. And now I think we're ready to see him against more world-class opposition. There's a reason why Najee has been being mentioned in conversation points with top contenders like Beterbiev and others. And I think we're not very far off from seeing him in the ring with those guys. And now I feel more confident myself in his ability to get in there with those guys. Not that he didn't have it physically before, but I think now physically and mentally he's coming together to where he's ready for those kind of fights.
And Chris, before this fight, he was already ranked number 10 on the WBA. And of course, after this win against Henderson, he's going to be ranked even higher.
Maybe not. I don't think Henderson is going to move the dial that much. But it does show, everything that the champ said in terms of where Najee Lopez is at and for his development. This is a necessary fighter. The only thing I'm going to add is that it showed discipline. It showed that he can work on a game plan, he can stick to a game plan, and he can execute on fight night. And I think that's really important for this weight class because at 175, all it takes is one mistake. These guys are good. They set traps. They can hurt you. They can end you. So there's very little room for mistakes in a weight class that's as deep and as good as 175 is. And Henderson, again, older guy, a little long in the tooth, but a lot of experience, setting traps, looking for that one shot. And that's one thing about Henderson. He can hit, and that's the last thing to go. So this was a dangerous fight. It had banana peel written all over it for a guy like Henderson with all that experience trying to set traps. But Najee just didn't take the bait. He kept that jab very, very busy, was setting up his shots, and then we got to see what we're used to from Najee. It's him going in for the kill and getting guys out of there. So it was an all-together, top-to-bottom, excellent performance from Najee Lopez. He showed the poise, he showed the maturity, he showed the discipline that's necessary for the next step.
Especially, Paulie, I think Najee Lopez improved a lot in defense, man, from his other fights to this fight, a lot.
Well, I think his reaction timing was always there. It's just a matter of the decision-making, how reckless are you going to be. So his defense, I think, is better just because he made a mental note as to when to take chances and when not to take chances.
And especially, Chris, going against a fighter who has a more experience like Henderson, what was the plan that Najee Lopez had?
I don't think we saw the plan executed perfectly. That's exactly what the plan was, to keep on the outside. And I kept saying this leading up to the fight, you got to set the table before you eat. And Najee did that. He set the table. He made sure that he was safe by staying behind that jab and getting Henderson into positions where he's going to need to keep his hands at home. So he couldn't unleash that good right hand or try and time Najee on his offense. And when the time was there, Najee didn't skip a beat. He went for it. He went down to the body well. He hit his right hand well. And then once he had his man hurt, he finished him. And I think the stoppage was good. Some people could have argued maybe it was a little bit early, but I don't think so. I think he had his man really hurt. And it was a good stoppage. And, again, as close to a flawless performance as one could have.
Let's go to the video. Let's go to the highlights to see the best of this fight, Najee Lopez versus Calvin Hot Sauce Henderson. Only lasted 4 rounds, Paulie.
Yeah, only lasted 4 rounds, and like I said, we've been talking about it. Good choice of shot selection here by Najee. Gets close, throws those 2 hooks, head and body, and then steps back on the outside to the distance where he's at. He's in control with the jab. Anything he did, he took his chances, stepped in, and then if Henderson was still not cooked, he got back on the outside and started working off the jab until finally he saw that he wobbled, he cooked a little better, and so only then was he able to really go for the finish. So I think Najee showed, again, that poise, maturity, like the champ said, discipline, not throwing the entire fuselage at Henderson until it was ready to be thrown. Prior to that, you saw in these highlights, little hooks here, a couple of hooks there, and then back on the outside, back on the jab. A couple of hooks there, good right hand there, uppercut here in the finishing salvo. But again, back on the outside until he hurt him. There he hurts him with that right hand, and that was when it was time to go get the finish. I think right before this right hand, as a matter of fact, there had been something else, because here is the finishing salvo. He's already kind of hurt here. Nothing here lands, but he was already kind of hurt. I remember on fight night, there was something that had landed prior to this exchange that had put Henderson back on the defensive, and this is why Naji was actually going for this explosion here. It wasn't out of nowhere. He saw something, and he realized it was time to finish cooking.
Chris, what do you think about the reaction of the referee, Massimo Montanini?
Yeah, like I said, I think there is some argument. You see the argument from Kelvin there that the fight was stopped a little too soon. I think ultimately it was a good stoppage because Naji was like you said, champ, just started to get cooking. And really, if you look at him, like we've seen Naji in the past really go for broke when he has a guy hurt. I thought those punches were very controlled. He was picking his spots really well. Even at the point where he should be getting excited, or you would expect him to get excited, he still pumped the brakes and was very smart about his shot selection. And I think that shows the maturity that Naji is now stepping into based off what we've seen in this fight on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think Montanini stopped it well. You see Henderson's hands start to drop at the end of that salvo. So, it's about to get really bad there. I think Montanini stepped in right at the exact time, because if you look at the end of that finishing combination, there's a shot that lands that Henderson's hands kind of drop limp a little bit, and that's going to be Jose Luis Castillo against Diego Corrales. That's gone. You got to stop it there, and so I think Montanini just saved Henderson taking an extra shot or two that he wouldn't have needed to take.
Chris, the champions on 175 pounds are David Benavidez and Dimitri Bivol. Do you think that Naji Lopez is already on the stage?
Benavidez has a belt?
Benavidez has a belt, yeah. Remember when the Bivol didn't want to face Benavidez? Maurice Sulaiman took the belt from Bivol and gave it to Benavidez.
So Bivol's not the
Bivol's not the champion of the
champion?
world boxing champion. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's David Benavidez. Chris?
No, I think that Naji is at least a step or two away from getting in with the tip top of the division. I think you mentioned he's in the top 10, which is great. I'd like to see him face a guy in the top 5, knock one of them off, and I think he's well in line for a title opportunity at that point. But at this stage, in terms of his development and physicality, I'd mentioned this on past shows, I don't like to see young prospects get overdone and overcooked because momentum is a big part of this, confidence is a big part of this, and not getting stale is also really important for a young fighter when they're trying to get to their opportunity. If you're being a contender for too long, it can really take the fight out of you before you ever get there. I don't want to see that with Naji, but at the same time, I also want to see him busy and earn the shot to a point where people are going to know who he is when he's stepping into the ring to fight for a world title. If he jumps right into a world title right now, I think there's a lot of people who are going to be like, who's this guy? Where'd he come from? But I think that he is right there, right on the cusp of fighting one of those top 5 guys and stepping into one of these big opportunities.
We have in the line Calvin Hotzel Henderson. First of all, Calvin, how are you? How are you feeling after the fight against Naji Lopez?
And I'm blessed, man. I'm feeling really good, man. I'm good. I'm still pretty. I'm still here. I'm still able to talk and be here with my family, man. So I'm blessed.
Calvin, how would you assess the fight? I thought, it moved along at a certain pace, and then Naji sort of found his moment and pounced. What were you looking to do? Were you looking to try to come over the top of his jab? We saw a lot of waiting, but I noticed during the fight you weren't breaking position. You were trying to hold position. So maybe I felt like you were trying to hold a position, maybe to catch him over the top of a lazy jab or something. What was it going through your mind as you were approaching through the rounds?
So first off, I'm gonna give a pass off to Naji, man. They came very well prepared. They did their homework. But as far as our game plan, though, we want to start the first 4 to 5 rounds and just stay competitive. Just keep the fight super close. And then for him being young on the last half of the fight, we was gonna start ramping it up and start pushing the pace and see if we can get him to try to open up more and then catch him on the shots while he's getting crazy and stuff. But he came out very disciplined. He stayed behind his jab. You can even hear his corner in the fight reminding him, no, stay disciplined. Keep the jab going, man. So hats off. They came out and did their thing.
Yeah, like you said, they obviously did their homework. They knew what they had in front of them, a dangerous guy. They had to stay disciplined. And you could see it, just like the champ said. You weren't breaking position. You were looking to set traps. But assess Najee, in terms of what it was like being in there, because you've been in with great fighters before. You felt what it's like to get hit by great fighters. You felt what it's like to I don't want to say not the aura, but the ability of a guy who's in front of you. We've all this table, except for you, Ricky. Sorry, have been in with great fighters. We understand what it feels like when you're in there with a guy like that. Did you get a feeling from Najee that he was at that level and was one of those guys to look out for?
I feel like if Najee, if he stays focused and stays locked in on his training and staying patient like he did against me, I think he'll give anybody trouble. When I fought against Morel, I felt in the middle of the ring, I felt maybe a step behind. Morel, I felt like Morel kind of knew what I was going to do before I do it. With Najee, I didn't really feel that way. I felt he had a strong jab, had a real good snappy jab. He put his punch together with good speed, good accuracy. But I felt that if the fight went on a little bit longer and I pushed a little bit more, I could have had a little bit more success with my counters and stuff. But definitely, man, really good jab, really good pace setter. I think some of the punches he threw to the body, he overthrew some of them. But, man, he caught me coming in off my jab, too, man. So hats off to him.
Calvin, you were mentioned David Morel. How you compare Najee Lopez with the Cuban David Morel?
So David Morel, of course, has unlimited amateur experience, man. He done seen and fought everybody. He's super comfortable in the ring. I feel like with Najee, his jab is definitely top tier. I think he should jab more to the body and kind of get my hand to drop down a little bit more because I had a really high guard. A lot of his punches, too, were one speed. It was quick as hell, but it's all this. And so when you fight those even better guys than me, you got to mix up the timing just a little bit more to get guys out of their rhythm and stuff and not really pick up on the punch you coming. You seen I tried some of the slip two counters, and I was just a little bit shy. And he was on top of rolling some of them, even coming back on some of the slip twos. But as you go into longer fights with more rigorous punches and shit like that, man, sometimes those slip twos start landing and things might go a different way.
It's a great observation, Calvin. That's a good boxing mind you got, bro. I mean,
I appreciate that, man.
That's something underratedly important as you move up the ranks. It's sort of like a chip pitcher having to have a fastball, but also a changeup to throw off speed pitches and whatnot. Punches are the same way.
Yes, sir.
Calvin, thank you very much for being with us here in ProBox TV. Wishing you the best, my friend.
Thank you, man. Y'all make good choices, man. Talk soon.
Take it easy.
Our number 5 fight happened in Washington, D.C. Jordan White versus René Teis Giron. Another great fight, Paulie, here in ProBox.
Yeah, another great fight and another one where, the result a little bit surprising. But on ProBox TV, surprises are the norm.
Chris?
Yeah, champ. Remember, we spoke about this fight, leading up to it. Like, you asked me, like, how's this fight going to go? I'm like, well, either Teis wins or Jordan White wins. It was like,
it's usually the case, right?
Yeah, exactly. And exactly what you said. You're like, well, yeah, of course. I'm like, yeah, but that's that kind of fight because it's not like, Jordan's going to go out there and outbox him, no problem. Because we've had Teis on our air, and he's super tough, super durable. He gave Floyd Schoenfeld hell at the end of his fight. He got actually dropped Schoenfeld late in the fight, and was in there at all times. And he's one of those guys. He's dangerous from opening bell until the last stanza. So really entertaining fight. White showed a lot of toughness. Bleeding from the nose, got dropped at one point, was getting hit with hellacious body shots all night long, but really just could not keep Teis off him. And Teis just looked like he was having fun in there. He was on a seek and destroy mission from the opening bell to the end. It was a little one-sided, even though the scorecards had it a little bit closer. I thought Teis was in control throughout, especially after the knockdown. But all in all, it was still entertaining because Jordan White showed a ton of heart in that fight. Like I said, bleeding from the nose, hurt to the body, got dropped with the right hand. And Teis, man, the guy is proving time and time again to be not only a tough out, but really entertaining.
One of those guys that the records don't matter.
Correct. Let's go to the highlights of this fight over there that happened in the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C. The Mexican René Teis Giron versus Jordan White.
Yeah, and Teis got on the front foot right away from the opening bell. He went right after White. I think that's a mentality. White has a bit of a puncher reputation. He's a boxer puncher with some heavy hands, and he's done some damage in that. But a lot of times when you back up a puncher, you take away their confidence. They can't get set the right way, and that's what Teis started doing. Right, he started backing up White, and he started sort of setting the tempo and setting the tone for the fight. I'm going to keep backing you up. I'm going to make it physical, and it made White not only uncomfortable, but it sort of took the power out of the equation, the power of White out of the equation. And as a matter of fact, it ended up being Teis that ended up dropping White during the fight. But credit to White, he stayed tough. White wasn't one of those guys that say, okay, I'm going to be a front runner. If I don't get you out of there, I'm gone. Nah, he stayed in. He toughed it out. Sometimes, you think, is this good for him to have toughed it out so much to take such a beating? But you know what? He showed his mettle, he showed his character, and that kind of mentality can also help him going forward if he allows it to, because he can say, I can deal with this kind of fight. I can go to hell in a fight, in a boxing ring, and survive that and come out of it. So in case the fights get tough in the future, he knows he's been through this experience and he can fight back. It's something that he can take with him, but sometimes fighters take it in a negative and say, wow, I don't know if I can be the same after that, and they're not. But I think there's a lot of positive to take here from White, because White still has a good record. He's had some good wins on his career ledger, and he did not give in.
And especially Chris,
yeah, I agree, champ.
Fighter, right?
Yeah, I know. I agree. Listen, it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to get stopped in your hometown. And that looked like Jordan was getting willed by the situation and the moment. But yeah, I agree with you, champ. I think he showed a lot of mettle, a lot of toughness. The kid obviously has a lot of skill, a lot of talent. He's got the amateur pedigree. He can punch. I think he'll be back as long as his psyche isn't too damaged by taking the loss at home. I think he has a lot to offer. And Teis was just a bridge too far this early. So there's more to go back and work on. He might have underestimated him a bit, because even in our fighter interviews, Jordan White said, like, I haven't watched much tape on him. I'm going to deal with him like I deal with everybody else. Well, he's not like everybody else. So maybe he learned that lesson. He can go back to the drawing board. But I want to see Jordan White in the future, because he is a good-looking prospect, and I like his style.
I was worried about the scorecards for the judges on that fight.
Well, local fighter, and that's the thing. Once you leave Florida, I'll tell you what. In Florida, when there's a bad decision, it's genuine. It's a genuine mistake. We've been working down in Florida for a while. That I've got my own kind of hold on the commission to say, you know what, these guys don't play politics. If there's a mistake, it's because they made genuine mistakes. Not that I excuse a mistake, but at least in other commissions, sometimes there's a little bit of home cooking and a little bit of politics. And this was one of those where they were a little closer than they should have been. But again, it's not really about that. This fight reminds me a little bit of the experience I had with Miguel Cotto. For White, White refused to go away, despite the fact that he was being physically overmatched and being pushed around. And that experience, because I didn't go away, I took that with me and say, you know what, I can deal with a hellacious fight and stay and can hold myself in a hellacious fight. And next time I'm going to be able to win in the hellacious fight. So I think White, because he's not old, right? How old is White, champ? Do you know how old he is?
No, he's young.
He's young. So exactly. I think when you take this kind of thing and when you're older, it may ruin you.
He's 27.
When you're young, and White is young, I think there's a lot of positives you can take out of it. Obviously, you don't want to say, a physical beating is positive. But what I'm saying is he held his ground the whole time. He held it. He didn't go away. He didn't think about going away. He stayed in tough. And you know what? Going forward, I think that experience is going to tell him, in case things do get tough in the future, be like, I've got this experience in my back pocket. I can handle it. I've been through worse. Let me keep trying to win the fight. And I think that can help you. Again, it's about the way you approach it mentally, but I think the experience can help you going forward.
Yeah, especially, Chris, the way René Teis was working the body, that really hurt Jordan White.
Yeah, I mean, the first round, I thought Jordan White actually won that round. That was the only round I gave to him. But it was still a close round. But as soon as Teis got to the body, and the fact that White had no answer for that, because he kept getting backed up straight, and he's a tall fighter, he couldn't keep Teis off him, so he went high guard defense along the ropes. That liver was open on each side. And Teis was really good at ripping uppercuts to get down to the liver, using the right hands to get down to the body. He had a good game plan. He was throwing that Canelo left hook, that uppercut to the left hook to the liver over and over and over again. I couldn't believe White didn't go down and stay down from the body work. He showed a lot of toughness. But all in all, I think this is a great learning experience, but also a springboard for Teis.
And I want to say one more thing about White. Listen, even if the thought of getting out of the fight crossed your mind, you didn't do it. And that deserves a lot of credit, because let me tell you something. Guys who don't quit, it's not because it never crosses their mind. That's all bullshit, okay? When you're in a tough fight, a piece of your mind is like, dude, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Like, I'm mad. This is hell. This is hell. But the better side of you, the stronger side of you overcomes that and stays in the fight, regardless of winning or losing. That in itself is a mental battle you win when you go those rounds. White won that mental battle. I'm not saying that, okay, you're super brave and you're going through a hellacious fight and it never crosses your mind. Guys that quit and guys that don't quit, the same thought crosses their mind. The guys that don't quit, there's something different about them. There's something stronger about them. There's something they can take with them going forward if they so choose to do that. And that's what White has to focus on going forward. He got through that fight. It was tough as hell, and he could have made the choice that a lot of fighters make. Could have got out of it. But when you look back on it, you're like, it sucked. But you know what? I got through it. And that's an experience that's going to make me stronger going forward. And it will.
Definitely. Gary, I got to give you a lot of credit, Gary. This was a great fight. Huh?
Well, do I get credit for just waiting for Paulie to finish before
Yeah,
I say what I wanted to say?
I got on a roll there.
That's what I get the most credit for. But no, I think from a matchmaker's perspective, guys, and you guys can tell me what you think, but I thought this was an interesting fight and a dangerous fight because I wanted to see White fight a Mexican-style fighter who was just going to come at him, and I wasn't sure how he was going to handle that. And I knew that, look, you're going to have to get ready for that. I would actually say this about Jordan White. Yes, he showed character, showed balls, he showed all that. I also know he's supremely talented in the pocket. He's supremely talented against another African-American fighter or a Puerto Rican-style fighter. But when it comes to a guy who's just going to dog you out, pick up the pace, and just grind it out on you, I was worried about that style of fight, and it showed. He didn't keep him in the center of the ring. He didn't pivot, not once. He ran around in circles, and he let Teis go downhill at him, throwing those kind of body shots and getting momentum behind his shots. So I think it's a learning experience. I do think he's a very talented kid. I think he does need to figure out how to fight against a high-pressure fighter like Teis.
Let's go for the fight number 4 of the month of September here in ProBox TV. Sulaiman Sagawa versus El Latino Acosta. Uganda versus Mexico, dear Paulie.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a surprise. Sagawa, we knew, was a crafty veteran. Acosta had come off of really an explosive performance where he came up just short against Ramon Cardenas in a fight where he dropped Cardenas, but a shootout, one of those classic ProBox shootouts that resulted in Cardenas getting the win and then getting a big shot at Naoya Inoue, where he looked good in that fight. He dropped Inoue on the way to eventually being stopped. But again, you go back and you think Acosta was very competitive with Cardenas. He had dropped Cardenas himself. So the play was really on looking at Acosta's performance and really his progression since the Cardenas fight. We knew Sagawa was a crafty, wily veteran, but it was thought maybe he was a little bit past it, and Acosta was the guy to watch. But boy, were we wrong, and it tends to be this way on ProBox. Not really. There's no real A and B sides here, and Sagawa proved to be too crafty. We're talking about wily and crafty and veteran experience here at ProBox. Well, Sagawa's crafty veteran experience proved to be too much for Acosta, and he had him absolutely bamboozled in a fight that turned out to be one-sided, I would say.
It was basically one-sided. And let's remember, Chris, that Brian Latino Acosta, he is the main sparring partner for Naoya Inoue.
Yeah, and Brian Acosta, like you said, Champ, he was a guy that really impressed against Ramon Cardenas. And Cardenas is known as being a big puncher. He dropped Inoue with that left hook. Took everything that Ramon could muster that night, did Brian Acosta. So you wouldn't really expect a guy like Sulaiman Sagawa to be able to get the stoppage. But he was, as you said, Champ, so crafty, so solid, so sure about what he wanted to do. And this is one of those fights where Sagawa is a really sleepy good fighter. He's sneaky as hell. He gave Bruce Carrington all he could handle. A lot of people think that he won that fight that night. I knew people who were in the room that night who were texting me saying, "Oh no, Shushu lost that fight." So there are people who are in the know about Sulaiman Sagawa. One of those is Lamont Roach himself, who was sitting next to us ringside helping us to call the fight, and who apparently has sparred hundreds of rounds of Sagawa. And he was talking him up and down about how crafty he was, how physically strong he was, and how he is a real sleeper. So maybe the people that were in the know weren't as surprised. I knew that this was a really tough 50-50 fight, but guess what? That's what ProBox TV is all about. But it's the way he did it, the way that he was able to really control and make it a one-sided fight and get a stoppage against a guy who's got a really good chin, or at least has shown it to be really good in the past against top-quality opposition. Impressive performance. Not really a great fight because it wasn't that competitive, but it was a great to see someone perform at such a high level. And it's always nice when you're shocked at an outcome. But all in all, I think both these guys have a lot to offer. You know, obviously Sagawa is going to go on to bigger and better things, and I think Costa, who I don't think is done yet. You know, you can lose on our air, and if you perform and fight with heart, which he did, there's an opportunity for you to come back and to potentially come back stronger.
Let's go to the highlights of this fight that happened over there at Care First Arena in Washington, D.C. Brian Latino Acosta from Mexico against the fighter from Uganda, Suleiman the Ruler Sagawa, Paulie.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is a crafty veteran stuff from Sagawa. You see the wide left hand, you know, a little bit of an awkward punch. Again, he's a southpaw. This was, you know, one of the things that I thought was confusing at Costa was the southpaw angles, because they're not only were they southpaw angles, they were awkward southpaw angles. And then Sagawa would go from being crafty to all of a sudden exchanging a lot and throwing a lot of big power shots, and it was completely throwing off the rhythm of Acosta, who just couldn't get into range correctly. Sagawa was feeling like he was finding his range. Even when Acosta would land, it wasn't doing a lot, and it wasn't doing a lot to break the focus and concentration of Sagawa. And ultimately, it was you know, a balanced attack to the head, to the body, various angles, like I said. Responsible defense on the part of Sagawa as well. A solid ability to hold position, and ultimately he wound up getting the stoppage and breaking him down.
And let's remember, Chris, that his fight...
Had a couple of good shots, too.
Right, Latino Acosta fight against Ramon Cardenas was in February of this year. Do you think that he was off on his timing?
No, I don't think so. I think that it was just Suleiman. I think it was more Suleiman Sagawa being, as the champ said, awkward, like crafty, awkward, and awkward in a positive way. And that was something that Lamont Roach spoke about from sparring with him. It's like, yeah, he's awkward, but he knows what the hell he's doing, and he's awkward on purpose. You know, to a degree that he understands exactly where he is, and you won't. And I think we saw that on display, and also just his ring savvy and his ability to stay calm in situations, control the pace. That's one thing. When you're controlling the pace inside of a ring, it looks like you never get tired because you're able to rest when you want to rest, and you don't allow your opponent to rest when they want to rest. So I think we saw a lot of things on display from Suleiman Sagawa. I don't want to take anything away from Brian. I think he fought as tough as he could, showed a lot of toughness, a lot of heart, but Sagawa showed a lot of skill that night, and I think just the awkwardness and the experience made the difference.
Now we have via Zoom all the way from Hermosillo, Sonora, México, Brian Latino Acosta. Brian, antes que nada, ¿cómo te estás? ¿Cómo te sientes?
Muy buenos días y muchas gracias por la invitación. Me siento bien, ya recuperado, ya enfocado en lo que viene para mi carrera y aquí estamos puestos para la entrevista.
What exactly happened in that fight against Sagawa?
Pues ya he venido recapitulando y pensándolo y todo. Siento yo que es una pelea donde llegué, se puede decir físicamente, llegué bien, se podría decir. Realmente donde no llegué muy bien era mentalmente. Mentalmente no llegué como debía. No voy a decir, o sea, por X o por Y, cosas que pasaron en la preparación, lo que sea. No llegué un 100%. Creo que no demerito nada el trabajo de Suleiman. Es un gran peleador, es un peleador muy maduro, inteligente. Como dice Chris, es un peleador que a propósito hace su estilo de pelea un poco ortodoxo. Pero yo iba preparado para eso, simplemente que fueron cosas que no... Fuera del ring, fueron cosas fuera de lo de la pelea, fuera del ring que me afectaron. Y ni modo, hay que corregir eso, no tengo ningún pretexto, no tengo ninguna excusa. Yo sé lo que tengo para dar, me he medido con muy buenos campeones, entonces yo sé lo que tengo. Sinceramente, ese Brian Acosta que peleó el 5 de septiembre no era ni un 50%. Pero nada, estoy muy agradecido con ProBox. Quiero, pues, de antemano decirles que mi regreso va a ser notorio.
Does he feel that if he had been mentally fully prepared, the result is different, or it's a better fight? And by that same token, does he want a rematch?
Me gustaría una revancha el día que él quisiera dármela, porque pues ahora él tiene se puede decir el sartén por el mango. Él es el que tiene la decisión. Y con todo, yo con todo respeto, le pido en algún futuro se pueda dar la revancha, adelante, yo estoy puesto para demostrar que ese peleador no era yo. Y quizás no me gustaría decir, si volvemos a pelear, lo noqueo o algo así, pero yo sé muy bien que yo hago una pelea muy diferente pero sí, me gustaría a mí una revancha con Suleiman. Igual no estoy cerrado a una revancha. Si él puede tomar su camino, yo tomo mi camino. Pero sí me gustaría una revancha para quitarme esa espinita y demostrarle a ProBox y demostrarle a la gente que ese peleador no era yo.
Brian, did you underestimate Sagawa? Because you said you had some out of the ring issues. You know, because I've been in that situation. I didn't feel like I was in the right place to be fighting, but I thought I could beat the guy anyway, and I took the fight because listen, I got enough to still get by this guy, and sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. But ultimately, that to me, I saw that myself as underestimating my opponent. Did you feel that you had a little bit of that you just like I can still beat this guy?
Brian,
It wasn't like I underestimate him, but it was like more confidence on me. Like you say, sometimes you feel good, you feel bad, but you always do. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
But this time it didn't work. I was like that. I was feeling bad things, preparation, similar thing that I think that I'm not good for this fight. But my warrior inside was like, man, let's go. We cannot.
The warrior lies to you.
Yeah. And the other thing was I cannot. I cannot get ProBox or these people a bad thing that I'm not gonna fight.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the compromise the that I have for that fight, and that was the thing that not forced me to fight, but pushed me to take the fight and do it. So right now, I think a loss not define your career. Every champion has every historic champion has a loss. Only Mayweather, but he's another. And you're gonna know notice about my new version of me. I'm gonna be I'm making changes on my team. And it comes the better for Brian Costa. I think these things have to happen and to make a better boxer. Yeah.
The order is three. Discipline causes results. Results give you motivation.
Right.
That's the order. That's the correct order.
Brian, muchísimas gracias. Brian, thank you very much. Your English is better than mine, okay? You have to come here to ProBox TV, okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The number 3 fight for the top 8 fights on the month of September on ProBox TV is Francis Scarborough versus Colombian Kevin Pedrahita. Another great fight, Paulie.
Yeah, Scarborough, a home favorite. He always sells a ton of tickets. Anytime he gets in the ring, Scarborough's got an exciting aura about him because there's so many fans. He's a big ticket seller. You know, it's a family sort of business there with him. You know, his father gets involved in the ticket selling, and the people are really behind him emotionally. You can feel the genuine love that Scarborough has locally. So there's always an exciting aura whenever he fights. But he had a guy that matched him for toughness. He wasn't going away. And this fight really, I don't want to say debilitated, it's a bad word, but it kind of debilitated into a battle, a real mud battle, you know, a real dog fight. And you know what? ProBox TV. That's what
ProBox TV, Jerry.
Yeah, Scarborough is rapidly becoming one of my favorite guys in terms of entertainment value. He brings the show. He's a super confident young man. whenever we spoke to him, he tells us what he's going to do. I'm going to be a world champion here. I'm going to unify this. I'm going to move up a weight class to do that. Watch what I'm going to do to this guy. And Champ, you mentioned how he's got all those people behind him. He's got them all, and not only in terms of like just energy, but also wardrobe. Everybody dresses just like him, and whatever whatever color he wears for his ring attire, the entire crowd wears, and it's awesome to see that kind of homegrown grassroots growth from a young fighter. And when I spoke to him, I said, "Hey, man, I was the same kind of fighter. I had my hometown behind me, and I grew out of a very small, unknown place to the world class level." And he said he's going to do the same thing. But in terms of entertainment value, there's a reason the kid's so popular. Yes, he's got a magnetic personality, but hell does he fight? He can really fight. He brings it. He's got a great gas tank. He's looking to load up power shots. Doesn't mind getting hit either. And Piedradita is a guy who has actually been training over at ProBox. He lost to one of our guys, Dominic Valle, and then he came back. He's like, I need a better training facility. I need better guys to train with. Started training over at ProBox. Then started taking short notice fights. This is his third short notice fight in a row. First round knockout. And no, I said the first short notice fight, first round knockout. Second one gets a majority draw, which means he won, because he was fighting in the guy's hometown and home promotion. Short notice, exactly. Then he takes this fight against Scarborough, who's in phenomenal shape always, and took it all the way to the tilt the whole time. Really, really impressive performance from both these guys. But I think Scarborough just shows his class, and he's growing in terms of his skill set. I think definitely still has some things to work on. I think he gets hit a little too much still, but hey, in the meantime, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great fight. I think I knew going in that Piedradita versus Scarborough was going to be a lot like Teis versus White. They were very, very similar. Everything was similar about this fight, except I had a little more faith that Scarborough had some dog in him, and I knew that it was going to pull the dog out of him to be able to match that pressure. And I saw he was punching him to keep him off. I mean, Scarborough must have thrown 1,000 punches that night. He threw a ton of punches to keep Piedradita off, and I think that demonstrated a little bit of the difference where White wanted to fight, his pace, and Teis forced it, whereas Scarborough and Piedradita forced it, but Scarborough matched it and raised it and came through. So it was a fun fight, and yeah, Scarborough's got he's got a big future in front of him.
Chris, here are the highlights from Francis Scarborough versus Kevin Piedradita.
Yeah, Scarborough is one of those guys. He's got a very exciting style. He's not afraid of engaging, and Piedradita is the kind of guy who really comes forward, puts his head in his chest, and looks to bang away with both hands. He's got power in both hands, scores a lot of knockouts. But Scarborough, man, he's big for the weight. He's in great shape, was able to withstand all the big power shots from Piedradita, even though he was really pushing hard, especially early on. But Scarborough met that firepower with his own firepower, and which led to a very exciting fight. And I've said it before, Scarborough gets hit a little more than I'd like to see, but at the end of the day, this is boxing, and it's extremely entertaining the way that he does fight. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. With a guy like him who's willing to engage, but still has the skills, the gas tank, and the size, I think makes him a formidable opponent going forward.
Francois, thank you for being with us here in ProBox TV. First of all, congratulations for that great win against Piedradita.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was definitely a fun one.
A bit of a shootout, Did you think that's what it would sort of devolve into when you signed that fight?
Me, I like blowing people out of there, so I definitely didn't think that he would stand toe to toe. And it kind of caught me off guard about the third round. I realized that he wasn't going anywhere, so I had to fall back on the scale.
Yeah, that was a tough fight. I mean, we spoke off air about conditioning and how that can separate you in a tough fight. And I've noticed that in your past fights. You're always a guy who comes in fantastic condition. Speak to that. Speak to your training and speak to what kind of confidence level that gives you. Because I always know when I was like, I'm in shape. I'm the most confident guy in the world. So speak to that in your training.
Well, I'm trained by Ernesto Rodriguez. He's no stranger to the game. He's had 2 world champions, and I got the chance to sit back and watch what world champions do and see how hard world champions train. And if I'm not training just as hard as them, then I don't feel good about myself when I go to sleep at night. So if I'm training with the world champions and I know that they're working their butt off, then how can my training fail me?
Francois, how tough was that fight against Piedrahita? We know this Colombian really bringing it. He got 10 wins, and 9 of those wins by the way of knockout.
Honestly, before I even fought, I said everybody's a big puncher until the big puncher comes in the room. So I was definitely not worried about his punching power because I know that I pack my own punch, and I guess it was a stalemate between the both of us. But I was never worried about his punching power.
Talk to us a little bit about the support you get, the local support you get. I noticed that you're a sort of, like, dare I say it, a good ticket seller, man. I mean, there's always a lot of good crowd that comes is behind you and gets you. Where does that stem from? Did you have that in the amateurs? Did that just grow organically, or do you have a big network through friends and family that sort of has grown out? You know, I'm always curious about how that grows so organically, because it's a notable sustaining that you have from that local crowd.
Half of it comes from my dad doing a good job promoting me, and the other half comes from me just being myself. If you know me, then you know I'm the same person on camera and off camera, and I'm kind of there for everybody. So when I have something coming up, then they try their best to be there for me, whether it's watching it on TV or coming out to the fights.
Do you have to curate that, or you know, are you a good networker in that way?
Oh, absolutely. That's some of the stuff I learned in college. I went away to West Virginia, Glenville State University, actually, and it kind of took me away from the DMV scene. So I had to learn how to communicate and talk to everybody, and now it's just it's natural. I believe in myself, so I don't mind shouting myself out in a conversation with a new person, and it's coming around now.
Yeah, I was a local ticket seller myself, and it led me all the way to a world title. You know, when you have that ability to sell tickets, everyone's going to want you, and the networks are going to want you. But it's a lot of work. You know, how is it like dealing with your friends, your family, your fans coming up to fight? Because it can be a big distraction, and it can take away. I've seen a lot of guys fall in that trap, that they were more worried about selling tickets and making sure everyone got their T-shirt than they were for preparing for the fight night. And next thing you know, you're losing in front of all your friends and family. Speak about that a little bit.
Honestly, I don't mind. I don't care about that stuff at all. I come from a place where, of course, I started out at the Russell's gym. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I never really got the credit that I wanted, or like the credit or the recognition that I deserved in the game. Coming all the way up till now, like I won fight after fight. If you check my boxing records, tough fight after tough fight, and nobody ever really talks about that. So I'm gonna keep going until I get a recognition that I deserve, and I'm gonna go way past that. I'm going to unify at 130, and I know, Paulie, you probably over there like, oh, whatever. I hear this all the time, but no, I'm going to. I promise you, and then we could talk about it later.
I think the motivation always has to be. There was a quote I said early in my career when a reporter asked me what the goals are, and it keeps you pushing yourself. Is when you reach for the stars, you never reach the stars, so you always stay striving, you always stay reaching, you always stay working, because it's something that you're never going to achieve. I think setting the bar so high, regardless of whether you achieve it or not, it allows you to achieve a lot, you know. And I think if your goal is to unify the 130-pound division, or even go beyond that and whatnot, it shows to the level of the self-belief and self-confidence that you have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. After I get finished with 130, I'm going up to 135. Listen, not only am I an entertainer, I'm a contender. I'm a star in the game. There's no one else like me. I tell Daniel all the time, he just found a Tom Brady at the draft class when he came out and signed me to ProBox. So I appreciate ProBox for giving me the opportunity. And the stars up. Oh man, look, it's on my phone now.
Francois, thank you very much. I can't wait, man, to see you back in action, okay?
Absolutely. To God be all the glory. Without him, none of this would be possible. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm founded on my faith and my religion. If it wasn't for God, then I wouldn't be here.
The number 2 fight for the month of September was for the Continental Lightweight title, was versus Jonathan Maximus Cardoso versus the Mexican Luis El Coreano Torres. Another great fight that we have in Washington, D.C., Paulie.
Yeah, this was another classic ProBox shootout. I believe this is number 2 instead of number 1 because it was maybe slightly less skilled Certainly, guys of a good level, nonetheless. That's why it's on the list. But I thought Moreno and Garcia was a shootout with a little bit higher skill. Torres and Cardoso, a shootout with a little bit maybe lax defense that causes fights to debilitate into these kind of wars and shootouts. And of course, a dramatic ending, sudden ending. That always makes things exciting as well.
Definitely, specifically, Chris, because Cardoso, it was his fourth fight here in ProBox TV.
Yeah, I love this fight. I thought this was really entertaining fight. Like you said, it had that explosive ending out of nowhere. I mean, just like out of left field. It's just like a booming, and then Cardoso's on his back, and he's really hurt. But you know, right away there was drama. There was a cut right away on the nose of the Mexican fighter, and he battled back. He stayed very, very calm. Was in there, focused on the game plan, but was for a lot of the fight getting out hustled by Cardoso, who's very explosive, who's very strong, who's been an ever improving fighter on our air. You mentioned Ricky; he's fought on our air a bunch of times. He's gotten better each and every time out, and I thought this was the best version of him that we had seen against one of the highest level competition I think we've seen him in against, and at the end of the day, it was the high potential and punching power of the Mexican fighter that ended the night. Because Coriano, man, we've seen him on our air as well, and looked very impressive when he fought in Mexico. And then he catches this weird loss in Argentina and gets stopped by a guy who's not really known as a puncher. So there's a lot of question marks about Coriano and his future. But he answered all of those that night against our guy here, our Cardoso, because it was looking like he was in trouble, but he stayed to the game plan, was supremely confident moving throughout the fight, and the way he ended it was spectacular. No other way to put it. So good fight all the way through, and we got the explosive ending that everyone loves to see, because we love knockouts. We don't want to leave it to judges, especially here on ProBox TV. And Coriano has resurged his career with a big win on our air.
Especially, Paulie, we mentioned many times that how important it is to have a good trainer, good corner. Yeah. And Cardoso, he has Mark Ferrate, and Coriano Torres, he has Bob Santos.
Yeah. No, it was a great battle, chess match in the corners, and a shootout inside the ring, really a shootout inside the ring. I think both these guys defensively have lapses to the point where it leaves you questioning whether they can reach world-class level. Again, that's why I think this was number 2 instead of number 1. But sometimes you match up two styles and you get dynamite. And this was one of those fights. You know, anybody that wants to go back and check out the full fight, I would highly suggest it.
Check the full fight, and if not, check the highlight that we're gonna have right now here between Cardoso and Coriano Torres. This happens over there in Washington, D.C. Great fight for the Continental Lightweight title, Chris.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, they did not need to be introduced to each other. They came right out and started banging. And like I said, Cardoso was boxing well from the outside. You know, he had damaged the nose right away, was using that jab really well. Has always shown a big right hand. He always showed that ability and want to be in the pocket and fire. But in this fight, he was smart about it. He was in, he was out. He wasn't standing just right in front of you, trading big shots. But Coriano was I think, ultimately showed himself to be the better boxer with the better timing, setting up those good shots to the body and to the head. But everything that Coriano did, Cardoso came back with, and he came back with firepower. He looked like he was the harder puncher of the two. That turned out to not be the fact, but I guess it's all relative, right? Because power is one thing, but chin's another, and Cardoso's chin has failed him in the past, and it failed him once again, because Coriano, once he found that shot, there it is, that straight left hand right down the middle, out of nowhere, put him down. He got up because the kid has a ton of heart, but really there wasn't much left in him. You see the ref here getting the count. I think he allows him to keep going, and Coriano goes in for the finish, unloads, shows an incredible gas tank to punch the way he punched, the output that he had at the end of a fight that had been pretty grueling up to that point, and was able to force the stoppage. You mentioned the corners of both these guys. Excellent trainers. Both tried their best to get their guys to fight a more disciplined fight, but at the end of the day, it was Coriano with the big power punch, that left hand, and following up with a fantastic endurance to finish the fight and get the win.
Yeah, I mean, you see, you look at that finish and you think maybe Cardoso could have held on. You know, it was getting close to the end of the round. If he would have held there possibly he was could have survived to get to the next round, but you don't know what he's gonna have left in the next round. These guys are both fatigued, tired. It was that kind of fight, and they gave it their all, and this was a reason why it's on this list, this fight.
Definitely, Coreano Torres is one of the most spectacular fighters lately. His last fight was against Nicholas Walters from Panama. A great fight also for Coreano Torres, and this win against Maximus Cardoso. Chris, definitely one of the best here in ProBox for the month of September.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I really enjoyed this fight, and Coreano's on a nice little tear. He looks super dominant against Walters, and Walters actually looked good on our air and coming back. Coreano's just riding the high right now. He's on really good momentum. This was a good win because there was a lot of adversity early on in the fight, between the nose getting broken by a headbutt, dealing with the blood throughout, and also with a guy who had a really good game plan, who came very strong and very fit. But he played his cards right. There you see Coach Santos, who's a fantastic boxing mind, who helped put this game plan together and get the victory. So I think there's a big upside to this kid. He's very young. We're going to see a lot of him on our air, and potentially I think he could be one of those guys who may be able to take it to the next level that we could see on the big stage soon.
And now we have all the way from Ciudad Obregón, Sonora, Luis Coreano Torres. We know that here in ProBox we have 50-50 fights most of the time. Luis.
Fue una pelea un poco dura porque tuve que trabajar con la nariz un poco lastimada después de ese cabezazo y siento que se me complicó un poco más hacer mi trabajo, pero gracias a Dios la preparación, todo lo hicimos muy bien en el campamento y el resultado salió favorable para nosotros.
What was going through your mind during the fight? It became very, very physically demanding. What was going through your mind as you were fighting the fight?
Arriba en la pelea yo me sentía cómodo, yo sentía que estaba haciendo mi trabajo bien con el golpeo al cuerpo. Solo yo pensaba que era cuestión de tiempo porque no podía agarrar con un golpe certero a él, ya que él tenía muy buenos movimientos, pero yo estaba cómodo en la pelea, estaba cómodo haciendo mi trabajo a pesar de tener un poco mi cara inflamada. Me sentía cómodo haciendo mi trabajo.
The fight was tough, like you mentioned, and the nose break early on. Cardoso brought on a very strong offense early on, was boxing well, was hard to hit. But you never looked deterred, you never looked uncomfortable. When did you know that you were going to get him? When did you know that the fight was yours? Or was it just, it was a spur of the moment, last ditch that caught him?
Como les digo, él en las primeras 5 rondas, él salió no salió muy fijo, él siempre movía su cabeza después de que yo le tiraba una combinación o X, así él tenía muy buenos movimientos de cintura. Para el 7º round yo sentí que él ya no se quitaba el jab, ya no meneaba su cuerpo para quitarse los golpes, sus pies estaban un poco más estables, pues entonces yo dije, él está preparado ya para solo darle un golpe certero, pero como les digo, no lo podía agarrar.
You've now won 2 fights here on ProBox, one over an ex-world champion like Nicholas Walters, another one against a very hungry contender like Jonathan Cardoso. What is it that you want next?
Tengo una gran esquina, que cuando estamos en campamento estamos 100% preparados, las mejor condiciones, llegamos a una pelea. No sé cuál sería el siguiente paso, pero a mí me gustaría, no sé, una pelea por posiblemente, no lo sé, un título un poco más arriba, una pelea eliminatoria o no sé, directo a una pelea por un campeonato, no, verdad, no sé, pero estamos listos para cualquier reto que venga. Nos prepararemos bien.
Luis, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much for being here with us in ProBox TV.
Thank you.
Now it's time to go for the number 1, la número 1, the best fighter of September here in ProBox TV. Emiliano Moreno versus the Dominican Raul Garcia. That was a banger, talking a 50-50 fight, my dear Paulie.
Yeah, I tell you, we get a plethora of really good fights on ProBox TV in any given month, and obviously some are better than others. But we get our fair share of barn burners and shootouts, and I think this one is the best one because it wasn't just a shootout, but it was a high-level, high-quality shootout. We have, like I said, here at ProBox, several shootouts a month, you know, and I think our loyal and faithful viewers will attest to that. You know, that's why they love us and they tune in for our fights. But, you know, Moreno and Garcia was a high-level shootout. You know, two very good fighters, and you could see the quality of boxing inside that ring. And it was the quality of boxing, but also, this is why I always say fighters have to fight each other at their best so you get the best quality fight, because there's a savagery as well when you are younger and still trying to accomplish so many goals and you're head-to-head against another one who is just like that and also trying to accomplish those goals and has all their dreams in front of them. And Garcia Moreno, obviously, I'd say they're more in the prospect stage than the contender stage. So this is really early in the careers of battling one another. But this was a high-level shootout, really good quality stuff, and again, savagery as well. Discipline, shot selection, power punches, change of pace, change of looks, change of angles. And again, I'll say it again, savagery. I mean, it was violence, right, but it was really, I guess I want to say beautiful violence in that degree.
Great, and it's not only one of the best fights of September, it's one of the best fights of the year.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, you put that very eloquently. I'm not. That fight was awesome. I really enjoyed that fight, man. I mean, it was hellacious action back and forth. And for me, it was the intensity and savagery of Moreno and the skill and the will of Garcia. Because you could see Garcia, man, he wanted to just go for broken fight. He wanted to stand in front. He wanted to bite down his mouthpiece and bang. And I'll tell you what, if he did, I think he would have got stopped. His corner, with his new camp in New Jersey with Coach Chino, kept pleading with him between rounds. Box. You just got to go out there and box. And he did. He boxed really well. He used the jab from the outside to offset the rhythm of Moreno. He used the jab to set things up for combinations. But, man, I mean, he stayed in the pocket at times. He boxed really smart at times. A really, really good performance from Raul Garcia. Something that we had never seen from him. Something that I had seen. I had seen the skill level. I had seen, what he could do on our past shows, but he always fell short. He lost on our air twice to one, an undefeated prospect. Very good-looking prospect, but it was a good close fight. And then he lost to Vladimir Hernandez, who was on an absolute streak at the time. But this fight was different, man. We looked at him right in the middle, before the fight even started. I'm looking at his physique. I'm like, he looks like he's in shape. And from our fighter meetings prior, he looked like he was very motivated. He knew what this meant. He knew that his career was on the line. His back was against the wall. And, man, did he show out. And, listen, to make a great fight, you have to have a willing dance partner. Emiliano Moreno, man, that kid has got tons of heart, an incredible chin, great will, awesome gas tank. These guys were banging from beginning to end and kept their composure. Their technique in the 10th round, when they were both exhausted, was still good. They showed world-class conditioning in a high-level fight, high-output fight, tagging each other back and forth. Both guys were hurt several times to the head and to the body. This fight had everything. It had everything but a knockout, because that was the only thing that it didn't have. But all in all, it was a fantastic two-way action fight, 50-50 all the way through. And the right guy got the decision. I thought Raul Garcia did enough. I think he showed enough ring savvy and enough discipline, sticking to the game plan to eke it out. And Moreno, a really young guy. He's only 20 years old. I think has a lot of talent and a lot of career left in him. I'd like to see both these guys back again.
Definitely. If you guys haven't watched the fight, Emiliano Moreno versus Raul Garcia, go back to our YouTube channels in Spanish or in English. And we got here the highlights, the best of this fight, Paulie. It was a great fight between Moreno and Garcia.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of good things done by both guys. Ultimately, it was the discipline of Garcia that really carried the day. Moreno, skilled and savage, but a bit one-dimensional, exposes a bit one-dimensional in this fight. And not to say that he can't correct that, because at 20 years old, there's so much you can do, But there was a little bit of more craftiness on the part of Garcia. He was changing levels. He was going down to the body and sort of distracting Moreno away from the headshots, and then all of a sudden he would shoot that right hand to the stomach and come up with a big left hook to the head when Moreno had sort of forgotten about the fact that Garcia could come up to his head. And you saw an example of it right there. There he actually blocked it, but you saw it was a very successful combination that Garcia was using. Was once he would take back control of the pace with the jab. Whenever the pace would get out of hand, Garcia would slowly take it back with the jab, because Moreno wanted a high, fast pace so that they could trade and his explosive power could make a difference. But Garcia would take the pace back with the jab, and then when he would slow it down just enough, then he would start shooting that right hand to the stomach and left hook to the head. It was a good combination. It was an effective combination for him, and that was sort of enough power to be used to get him through in between that jabbing, controlling the tempo, controlling the pace style. While Moreno was looking for the violent exchanges constantly, because he knew that's his ticket to win, to the victory. It's to get into those physical, violent exchanges, and you can draw Garcia into that. You're probably going to end up catching him, and I think the champ Chris is right. If you would have lured him into more of those, eventually I think Moreno would have got the stoppage. But kudos to Garcia, kudos to his corner for going back and always retaking control of the pace so that he could control the rounds, and that's what ended up making the difference in the fight between two good fighters in a high-quality slugfest.
I was surprised, Chris, that Michael De Jesus, the referee, didn't call a knockdown.
It's not a knockdown.
It was a knockdown.
It's not.
It is.
Absolutely
It
not.
is.
Absolutely.
No
That's a
way.
jab. That's not
That was
causing
a balance
That's
shot.
not causing that to go down. That's a jab. But
It is a jab. He connected the jab.
But that's taking the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. That's not what's causing the knockdown. The momentum of his hook is what brought him down. The jab does not cause a knockdown. So if you want to call the letter of the law, sure, you can call it a knockdown. But that jab is not causing a knockdown. It's the follow through. It's the follow through of the left hook that makes him slide.
Yeah.
His pivot foot slipped.
Exactly.
His
The pivot foot slides
slipped,
out from underneath him.
and it's probably
Right
a little
there.
bit of a wet ring. His pivot foot slips.
It's
and he
also
goes
the
down
end,
from
end of a
momentum
10-rounder.
hook.
It's the last fight of the night. These guys were, the ring was wet, and they both guys were tired. Yeah, I agree with you, champ.
So, Chris, what do you think about the fight?
I mean, the fight was amazing. I mean, the fight was excellent. And again, I want to see both these guys again. I want to see both these guys fighting, not necessarily with each other right away, because they need some other fights, some other great opportunities out there. But I think both these fighters have good futures. And Raul Garcia is going to go one direction. Emiliano needs to rebuild a little bit, but I think there's still a lot of fight left in Moreno. I mean, look at Raul. He lost 2 fights in our air, and now we're talking about him in Fight of the Year and where he can go on from here. But that's just the spirit of ProBox TV. Even when you lose, if you fight hard, you will come back. And I think Emiliano Moreno will be back. And in terms of where Raul Garcia goes, I mean, listen, this guy can be a real player, and he's done. This is, I think, a 3rd or 4th appearance here on ProBox TV. He's going to become a fan-friendly favorite if he keeps fighting like this. His fight with Vladimir Hernandez was fantastic as well. So I think there's a lot of upside for Raul Garcia moving forward.
We got already Raul Garcia, the winner of this fight against Emiliano Moreno. Raul, first of all, congratulations. What a great fight you gave against Moreno.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How you feel today?
I feel great.
I see you're in the gym already. Are you back in the gym or what?
Yes.
Raul, the best I've seen you look in all the fights you've had here on this channel on ProBox.
Thank you.
What was the game plan? ¿Cuál era tu plan? What was the game plan?
Listen to my coach, my team. So, key intrusion, that's it. Only this is doing.
When the pace got too fast, la controlaste otra vez con tu jab. You took back control of the pace with the jab and slow it down.
Ese era el juego de pelea, seguir la instrucción de mi entrenador, y eso fue lo que trabajamos para poder obtener lo que tuvimos anoche.
Yeah, Raul, congratulations. Welcome to the show. Speak about your camp. I kept hearing Coach Gino in the corner telling you to go out there and box, go out there and box, go out there and box. And then also, I noticed right away when I saw you in the ring, you took your robe off, you look in better shape than I'd ever seen you. Speak to what training camp was like and training with Coach Gino and those guys in New Jersey.
So every single day in training, every single day, listen to my coach. So this is the plan. The discipline, good food, good training. So key nutrition. So that's it. Got to win it.
Enfocado, focus every day.
You got to keep that up. Gotta keep doing that because that performance was fantastic. That's the best you've ever looked. So you got a good game plan now. And you gotta stick to that because it's obviously working.
Raúl, what do you want next? ¿Qué quieres próximo? Pues una pelea así, fue una performance muy estelar de ti. What do you want next?
Yo quiero seguir adelante, escuchando las instrucciones de mi entrenador, de mi promotor Samsung Boxing, Manguita Boxing Promotion. Ese es mi equipo. No puedo hacer más nada que escuchar mi equipo y siempre poner a Dios en mi planes como número uno y más nada. Estoy aquí para hacer lo que dice mi equipo.
Keep this trainer, mantiene este entrenador porque es lo mejor que yo te vi.
Al chino.
Te digo,
Gracias.
no eres un boxeador malo en las otras peleas que te vi, pero en esta pelea te vi un otro nivel. Yo te vi un otro nivel. Inteligencia, calma, de emoción, selección de los golpes. You know, I saw you as a different fighter. Shot selection, calm, emotionally calm, disciplined.
Agradezco este momento para darle las gracias al maestro Chino Rivas, que ha hecho un trabajo conmigo fenomenal. Se ha centrado conmigo en enseñarme, aprenderme, pero también lo más importante es que yo me he preocupado por aprender y eso es lo que nos ha llevado hasta donde hemos llegado.
Raúl, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Raúl, for being with us here in ProBox TV.
Gracias a ustedes, se lo agradezco. Bendiciones, fuerte abrazo y que Dios me le bendiga siempre a todos.
Definitely, that was a great fight between Emiliano Moreno and Raúl Garcia, Paulie.
Oof, dynamite, absolutely action-packed, and like we talked about, skill as well as excitement. It's a high-level, exciting fight. And I'll tell you what, this list has been really tremendous, really an amazing month of fights here at ProBox TV. The reputation is growing. We really appreciate the fans for tuning in and again, creating this cult following. Tell your friends. We have a big schedule set up in November with a lot of fights. We're taking off in the month of October, but you can always tune into our talk shows. And I'll tell you what, man. This list right here, if you haven't watched these fights in their entirety, this list right here, now you have a list of fights. You can go on your YouTube, go watch them in their entirety, man. I'm telling you, you will enjoy it. If you enjoyed the highlights, trust me, the real thing was even more dynamite.
And Chris, November 7th, we're going to have a great card also.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Champ, we're going to take a little bit of a breather in October, which honestly I think you guys might need because the September fights are so damn good, as we just talked about from that list. But we're coming back strong in November, so we're finishing the year strong. Bunch of shows. We got 3-4 shows in 5 weeks coming up in the month of November and December. You don't want to miss all the action. 50-50 all action fights. You do not want to miss it. ProBox TV has a great list for the rest of the year. Tons of action fights, and man. Take your breath here in October because we're going all the way to the end.
And we don't rest on holidays. November 29th, while you're still digesting your turkey, tune in to us. We got a great card from Fresno, California, November 29th.
Paulie and I will be having a turkey sandwich on the air that night.
I want to see that. Definitely. In the name of Gary Jonas, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, Ricardo Celis, thank you very much. Remember, November 7th here in ProBox TV.